everyone, my name is Angela Hart and I'm a second year CCD graduate student at Georgetown University. For the past year, I've been working on my thesis project, Do Political Film Adaptations Affect Voter Knowledge? This has been quite a comprehensive study and has required a great deal of time on my part. And so today I'm going to be talking to you about some of the challenges I faced with conducting focus groups. For my particular study, I had to use focus groups in order to determine if people learned knowledge after viewing a film. In order to publish academic research, scholars need to go through the proper channels to ensure that they are allowed to go forth with their projects. Most of the time, this requires IRB approval. Filling out the application is not an easy undertaking. For my particular project, there were about 150 questions, and I think it was 14 separate sections. I needed to put aside at least 2 hours to answer everything thoroughly, because they will come back with revisions and ask you to resubmit your application. It took me about a week to hear back from IRB, and then it took me another week and a half, 2 weeks to finalize everything with them. And so after they said yes to my project and did all their little check boxes, I was able to proceed and reach out to people, and that alone required quite a bit more time on my behalf. Given the fact that I'm a graduate student, I was not paying my participants. People needed to volunteer their time. And so since I was doing film viewings, people needed to give up at least 2 hours of their time because they needed to do the pre-test that I was conducting, which was a quick survey of about 20 questions, watch the film, do another quick little survey, and then stay after the fact to talk about the things they learned or the things they found interesting about the film. So for me, it required people to put aside a great deal of time. I was very, very thankful for the people who did participate, but it became more problematic to get people to take part in my study because it required so much time on their part. I understand that, and I sympathize with that, and I appreciate all those people who helped me, but it is something that you need to take into account if you are going to be conducting focus groups or you are going to be having people involved, because the amount of time that's required of them will affect your project. Taking into account that my sample pool was comprised mostly of students, they all had their own obligations, classes, work, etc., and so it became quite difficult for me to find a time of the day that worked for everybody. There are night classes, there are activities, everyone has obligations. At the end of the long day, they want to go home to their families or their friends or something if they're traveling to school, and so it became quite difficult to get people to take part in my process. At the end of my study, I held 7 focus group viewings and ended up having 38 people in total. But that being said, I was only able to use 31 of their actual results. In order for me to accurately analyze someone's results, I needed to have their pre-test and their post-test. If I didn't have both of their exams, I wasn't able to count their surveys into my research, and so I ended up pulling their general information out of the study because I couldn't have their information after the fact without being able to compare it before the film. So after you watch the film, hopefully you gained or were able to have more insight into the 2000 election, and if you only filled out a pre-survey, you didn't have the end result, which is what I needed to compare. So I needed to be mindful of who came and went and be able to pull their surveys. So that was a little disheartening when I had to remove information that I really wanted to include, but I needed to keep in mind what was going to help my study. This might sound rather odd, but one of the major problems I first encountered was actually finding a room to hold my viewings, because the classrooms booked up quite quickly, and since I needed the room for at least 2 hours, I wanted to book for 3, this way I had time to go in and set up, and then clean up after the fact. So I wanted to get a 3-hour time period. So for a campus, that's a very large block of time, and they were not able to accommodate me. I ended up finding a room that was associated with my particular program, and they gave me access to it, so after hours I was able to book time with them and claim the room as my own. But I did encounter quite a bit of pushback when it came to actually booking a room. That was not something I anticipated being a problem, but that actually required, I want to say, about a dozen or so phone calls and various emails back and forth. It was not a fun part of the process, and so once I was able to find a room and schedule time in it, I just wanted to make sure I used that throughout the duration of my project. The people who took part in my project were wonderful. In order to thank people for taking that amount of time out of their day, I bought a great deal of food. I bought cookies, I brought little water bottles, I brought anything and everything you can imagine. I baked cupcakes, and so my way of thanking people, because I couldn't pay them, was to bring them complimentary beverages and snacks to take part in so that they could munch while they watched the film. If you were going to be holding a focus group, my advice would be to have some snacks for them, because I think people appreciated the fact that I wanted to thank them for their time, and it also made the viewing experience more like going to a movie theater for them because they had their own little concession stand of sorts, and so that became a fun part of the process for me. They also ended up staying after the film viewing so that they would talk to me about different questions that I had and would give me their immediate feedback, so they would end up staying an additional 20 to 30 minutes at least I ended up having 2 groups that stayed about an hour to talk about the film itself. And so because I had snacks and water and things of that nature, they, I think, felt more comfortable and were more likely to stay. For my focus groups, I gave them a pre-test and a post-test. On the post-test, I mixed up the questions and the wording just a little so that it wasn't the exact same test again. I did try and make the surveys a little bit more fun and engaging to keep people active in the process. I also used, I think, a 16-point font on the survey sheet so that they were able to easily read it, and I used more of a fun font so that it looked more as if you could just fill in the answer and it didn't resemble a test. I wanted the process to be enjoyable, and so in order to have a conducive environment, I wanted to make sure people didn't feel as if it was an exam and they were going to be at fault if they didn't know an answer. For my particular study, I didn't really want them guessing and getting something right, because that's not really learning something from the film, that's just pure luck. I'd rather have someone acknowledge the fact they don't know, and if it looks like an exam on the survey, they're more likely to guess and not be completely honest because they'd probably think I would judge them or they'd be at fault of some sort. And so it was very important for me to craft a survey that was going to be more engaging for them and not resemble an exam. For my particular study, I wanted to keep the survey information confidential so that they didn't have to put their name on the top of it. In order to match the pre and the post surveys, I had everyone get a randomized number from 1 to 100 and put that on the top of their pre and post survey. And so I had to remind them a few times, and if you are conducting a focus group using this method, I do advise you to state it very clearly at the beginning, in the middle, and make sure at the end when you're collecting them, ask, did you put your number at the top of this? In order to have a randomized number, I bought a pack of flashcards and hand wrote on them 1 to 100. So each flashcard had one number on it, so I literally labeled 100 different flashcards with numbers. To make the process more engaging, I used different markers, I put sparkles on some of them, I put stickers on others, and so people ended up really enjoying their flashcards, and one girl even mentioned she was going to scrapbook it, which made me very happy because they put so much time into it. Because I decorated the flashcards and made them more engaging, people remembered their numbers, and one person even folded it up and put it on top of their survey to make sure they had it. So that additional time I spent ended up being well used. Since my project also involved pre and post surveys, I brought a lot of different pens to make sure everybody had a writing utensil. I wasn't going to rely on them bringing their own school supplies. I wanted to make sure I had them for myself, and so that ended up being very important for me because a lot of people just came by themselves, maybe with their wallet and nothing else. If you are going to hold a focus group, make sure you're prepared for any and all situations such as that. My focus groups proved quite useful with my study, and I really enjoyed the process. I learned quite a bit about the film, how different people perceive things, and their exams are very telling. After I did my statistical analysis, I found that people on average answered at least 4 to 7 more questions correctly after viewing the film. In the end, I'm very glad I conducted this particular study utilizing focus groups and respondent feedback. If you have any questions about my results specifically, please comment down below or email me directly. I would love to talk to you about it. I really enjoyed holding my focus groups and I learned a great deal from people. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know.